On this edition of The Correspondents, Turkish authorities detained 13 suspects in connection with the bombing at Istanbul's airport. Some believed to have direct links to Islamic State fighters in Syria. Britain votes to leave the European Union. But what happens next as uncertainty about the future of the British and European economy sends shockwaves near and far? And as Americans celebrate the country's birthday this weekend, a closer look at some of the little-known secrets surrounding the most iconic monuments in the nation's capital. Hello and welcome to The Correspondents on Voice of America. I'm Arcega in Washington. Well, we begin with the latest now on the terrorist attack at Istanbul's Attaturk International Airport. Turkish authorities say 13 suspects are in custody in connection with Tuesday's triple suicide bombing at one of the busiest airports in Europe, an attack that killed 44 people at the scene and wounded more than 200. At least 3 of those detained in Istanbul are said to be foreigners. Turkish officials have now blamed Islamic State for the attack, even though militants have yet to claim responsibility. John Brennan, the head of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, says the bombing has all the hallmarks of Islamic State depravity, and he warns the terror group may try the same thing here in the United States.
The movement of people and goods in this 21st century world, I think in many respects can facilitate what it is that ISIS is trying to do. And so we've seen that they don't even have to reach out and touch somebody. The horrific attacks in Orlando, an individual who is able to access the material, but also you have individuals that they're able to guide and direct and to deploy. And so there's a range of challenges that intelligence security agencies have.
And joining us now to talk about the motives behind this latest attack, we're joined in Washington by VOA senior analyst and investigative reporter Jeffrey Young. And also in our studio, international broadcaster Alparslan Esmer with VOA's Turkish service. Thank you both for joining me. Jeffrey Young, let me start with you. Besides the modus operandi, is there any evidence actually to suggest that this attack was coordinated and planned by Islamic State?
I think you have guilt by association rather clearly. Not only the modus operandi itself, there's a pattern that the Islamic State has used repeatedly, and that is to shoot its way into the middle of the situation and then detonate the explosives. This causes casualties up front. It knocks the security elements off to the side, and then the biggest damage happens at the point of the detonations. So we've seen that. The other thing is we've got a Kyrgyz, an Uzbek, and a Russian. And people say, well, why do we have that? If you go back and think about conflict in Islamic areas, these are the people, these are battle-hardened veterans. They have been fighting the Russian state for ages and fighting the Soviet Union before then. So these are the people the Islamic State considers to be the A team. When they have a big job to do, these are the ones you put in.
Alp, you've got a lot of backgrounding on this issue. I guess the question to you is, why hasn't Islamic State yet claimed responsibility for this attack?
Well, as a matter of fact, they've been carrying out attacks in Turkey for the past more than a year already, and they used to attack the Turkish opposition supporters. They used to attack Kurds. They used to attack government critics, but they never have taken responsibility in any attack so far. Actually, as you said, they haven't claimed any responsibility so far. But it seems there are, in fact, they are quite critical of the Turkish government, I can tell you. I mean, within their own publications, whether you call them legal or illegal, but in a way, they were calling the Turkish president as like the apostate and the Turkish army, the infidels army. In a way, they were giving little signs about an attack in Turkey, or actually various attacks in Turkey. And
I want to talk to you. I want to explore that whole aspect of it a little bit later. But Jeff, on the potential for another similar attack, especially here in the United States, what exactly is John Brennan talking about? Is he talking about the possibility of another lone wolf attack like the one we saw in Orlando, or could this be a little bit more coordinated?
There are so many so-called soft targets in the United States at any given point in time. Crowded airports, this weekend's 4th of July celebrations. You have masses of people, not just here in Washington, but in many cities across the country, gathered for fireworks, etc. Anywhere that there's a large group of people and it's not heavily defended and they're not in a high security area, you have what is called a soft target. And this is what DCI
there are, in fact, special
about.
challenges to law enforcement here in the United States because of those very same freedoms and liberties that we do have and the range of soft targets, right?
And that's why you have people in the security elements in the United States and elsewhere in other countries doing what's called behavioral detection, where you watch people very carefully. They do this at airports. They do this in Tel Aviv. They do this in Frankfurt. They do it in other places. We do it in our own airports.
Right.
When people come in and act in a certain way, when something doesn't look right, that's what triggers an alarm. And that's when security elements move in. If you go back and look at what happened in Istanbul, this is the summertime in the Northern Hemisphere, and these three men are wearing heavy coats. I mean, instantly, anyone whose security, seeing these men coming into the front of the airport, would think, what are you talking about? It's 30 degrees outside. Why do they have heavy coats on? Alarm.
And this being the 4th of July weekend, I guess all Americans need to be very aware of any possibilities. Alp, I want to get back to Turkey situation, though. There has always been this sort of tacit understanding between the Turkish government and Islamic State that that country's porous borders were being used as a jumping-off point for Islamic State fighters. Is that dynamic likely to change, that sort of tacit understanding that, hey, you can use, the Turkish borders?
Well, it certainly is about to change in a way. Well, actually, Turkey will be embracing to cooperate with the coalition more often, I believe, and there will be more. I believe there will be a change in Turkish-Syrian policy as well. But, well, actually, the government was in a way constant denial mode, I can tell you. In a way, well, if you might just remember a headline by New York Times 2 days ago, it was saying Turkey, a conduit for fighters joining ISIS, is now feeling its wrath, it said. It's just like apparently everyone believes in it, but in a way officially it's always been denied by the Turkish government. But on the other hand, Turkish government was always complaining the Western governments for not cooperating with them about the incoming jihadists and or possible potential jihadists.
And Jeff, given this sort of tacit understanding, why is Islamic State targeting Turkish airports?
You have tourism. It is a lifeblood of Turkey's economy. They need people to come and spend their money along the coast in Bodrum and Izmir and in Istanbul and other places. If you look at where the attack took place at Attaturk Airport, it took place in the international terminal, not in the domestic terminal. This is the terminal where people from other countries come through the airport. So it's very deliberately targeted to scare away people who might think about taking a vacation.
So this message is not just directed at Turkey's government, but to the rest of the larger world.
And to the Turkish economy. Because by undermining the security of the state, by undermining Erdogan and undermining the foundation, one of the economic foundations, tourism, you are hurting Turkey. And that is very definitely the message behind this attack.
Alp, I'm curious, how do Muslims in general feel about this attack happening right in the middle of the holy month of Ramadan?
Well, ISIS does not have much sympathy in Turkey, first of all. That's what I can tell. I mean, especially if they carry out such vicious attacks in Turkey, they would not be really popular there either. And the way ISIS sees Turks as not really enough Muslims, they don't really consider them Muslim enough, being Muslim enough. So in a way, although ISIS has many Turkish members, they might just continue their attacks, but it has never been really popular among the Turkish society. Even among the current Islamist government supporters, ISIS has never been popular.
Jeff, you've been following Islamic State since 2014, since we first learned of this group. Their stated goal has always been to establish a caliphate. But given the recent losses that they're seeing in both Iraq and Syria, is this how the tactic is changing? Let's cut our losses in Iraq and Syria and start looking at other centers of commerce.
I don't think that they've abandoned the idea of a caliphate at all. They're taking the lumps right now. Their territory has been reduced because of aggressive action by the U.S. and other people involved in the coalition against Daesh. But they still want this. This is the goal. It's something that was abolished by Attaturk with the formation of the Turkish state. And they consider this to be a mortal insult to Islam. And to reestablish this is to reestablish the glory of Islam.
Well, I hope to have both of you back on the program again because, as always, I'm out of time. Alparslan, thank you so much. And Jeffrey Young, we appreciate your contributions. Right now, though, it is time for a quick break. But when we come back, the shockwaves from Britain's historic exit from the European Union continues to reverberate. We'll talk about what happens next. This is The Correspondents on Voice of America.